Okay, let's dive in. You've asked us to look at some fascinating material today about conflict, specifically how those tough moments in relationships, they aren't just something to survive. You can actually use them to build a deeper connection.
Yeah, it's a really interesting take. The core idea from the source, it's pretty striking. Arguing isn't the real problem. Wasting the argument is.
It's quite a reframe, isn't it?
It is. Instead of seeing conflict as, a failure, these sources suggest turning those emotional storms into opportunities. So we're going to explore some specific techniques, things like preparing your mindset, designing how you navigate difficult moments.
Almost like practicing for arguments, not just reacting.
Exactly, practicing for them. It sounds a bit odd at first, I know.
It does. Okay,
Yeah.
let's unpack this a bit. The material mentions something called negative visualization here. That sounds, well, kind of negative.
It does, doesn't it? But it's not about dwelling on bad stuff or making yourself anxious. Think of it more like a mental rehearsal. It's about deliberately imagining, just for a moment, the worst case scenarios you might face in a conflict.
Like what? The silent treatment or maybe losing your temper?
Right, or seeing real hurt in your partner's eyes, those kinds of things.
Okay, picturing the fight going really badly. Why? Why would you do that?
Well, the idea is that experiencing that potential pain in your mind, it serves a critical purpose. It helps you vividly remember to cherish the connection you have right now.
I see. Sort of a contrast effect.
Kind of like that, yeah. It's actually an old Stoic idea, but applied to relationships. And the technique goes further. It suggests actually rehearsing your response,
Rehearsing, like what you'd say.
preparing the words, the actions you want to embody, maybe even saying them out loud beforehand. The source frames it not as fear, but as wise emotional prevention.
Okay, that makes more sense. Like running a fire drill before the fire.
Precisely.
The material also points out something interesting. How often, maybe after a tense moment, hidden truths seem to bubble up.
Yes, it definitely notes that. That emotional pressure often breaks through our usual rational walls. It lets deeper feelings, or maybe things we haven't said, come to the surface. The key, though, is using that moment productively.
How so? Not for blame, I assume.
No, not for blame, but for expressing those genuine, often quite vulnerable core needs or fears, the things that emotion sometimes gives us the courage to finally say.
Can you give an example? Like what kinds of things?
Sure. Examples from the source are things like, I just want you to understand me, or maybe, I just need to know if you still care.
Ah, okay. Very direct, very fundamental.
Exactly. They're statements that aren't about winning or losing. They're about the foundational needs of the relationship. It's using that courage emotion brings to bridge the distance, not, create more of it.
Right. Now, here's where it gets really interesting for me. This isn't just about surviving conflict, but actually using it to make the relationship stronger. The material talks about an anti-fragile relationship system.
Yes, anti-fragile. It's a powerful concept.
What does that look like in practice?
Well, connecting it to the bigger idea, anti-fragility means something gets stronger under stress. It doesn't just resist it. So for relationships, this approach suggests designing a kind of structure to handle the emotional load. Picture it like a system. Maybe 95% of it is made up of safe actions, predictable things, low-risk behaviors.
Like what? Apologizing first.
Yeah, or offering comfort, maybe bringing them some food, doing something practical to help, the reliable stuff.
The bedrock.
Yeah.
Okay, and the other 5%? That sounds small.
That's where the growth happens. That's the calculated emotional risk.
Risk, like sharing those raw feelings.
Exactly. Making a confession, expressing vulnerability, things that feel a bit scary. But this system isn't random. It's designed so that most of the time, the 95%, you're digesting emotions safely. But you're also intentionally creating space, that 5%, for your true selves to show up and be integrated. It makes the relationship more robust because it learns from the stress.
Building emotional muscle, in a way.
That's a good way to put it.
There's also a really practical tip in here about apologies. It says the timing is crucial.
Absolutely crucial. This raises a really important point. A lot of us think of an apology as cleanup, after the fight.
Right. Damage control.
But the material suggests the most powerful apologies. They aren't delayed. They come as tension starts to rise, right at the beginning of the storm.
So catching it before it really explodes.
Exactly that. The example given is simple but really effective. Saying early on, maybe as things just start to get heated, look, if I sounded harsh just now, I didn't mean it.
That feels quite vulnerable doing it early.
It is. But these aren't presented as strategic moves. They're genuine gestures. The source describes them like water, putting out sparks before they become a full blaze. That early soft opening can totally change the path of a potential fight.
Okay, so bringing this all together,
Hmm.
what does this mean for you listening right now? These aren't just abstract ideas, they're actual practices. Mentally preparing for tough moments, finding the courage to share true feelings productively.
Building that kind of system to process emotional friction
Hmm.
and mastering the art of the early apology.
Yeah. How could applying even one of these maybe turn your next difficult conversation into a step toward a stronger connection rather than just another fight?
It fundamentally shifts how we see disagreements, doesn't it? They
Yes.
become, well, training grounds, maybe, not battlefields.
Right. Using that friction to actually build resilience and deepen understanding instead of just letting it wear things down.
And the source material leaves us with this final thought to consider. What if every argument you face isn't just a painful event to get through? What if it's an essential step toward a better version of you and your partner? What if you could actually train yourself? Train yourself to let reason lead your preparation. Let courage speak first by showing